Well, I'll be with you the whole time. So let me quit. Who works in the front end exclusively? You're good. And, well, finally, who is the full stack developer here? 1, 2, 3. Oh, what about the rest of people? Yeah. Who are the full stack developer, front end and back end? Okay, we have a very well mixed audience, so hear me out. Full stack developers, thank you for choosing my talk because you are already in the journey and I just started, and I can't wait to hear about your opinions by the end. And for front-end developers, congratulations. In my book, you're already full stack. Why? Because you have the potential to deliver a product on your own without relying on backend. But as backend folks, myself, have been comfortably doing backend in Java for 3 years before I changed my job. Well, I have nothing to demo on my resume other than some APIs. And my resume reads like, well, my API can increase the efficiency by how many %, but I just can't live demo it. That has a pay point for my career. So, well, that's not the real reason why I started breaking into the field. Well, the real reason is one day my team let go the very last front-end developer, and the manager went to me and says, well, are you able to hold this position until we find a replacement? I'm like, yeah, of course, you are the manager. But really, I know literally nothing in the front end. But I get to keep my job. At that time, I feel like I'm this silly goose. Well, what do I do? So if you were in my position, what would you do? Learn. So how fast I should be learning? Very fast. Very fast. Okay, I'll share you the secret a little bit later that can make you learn as fast as you can. So I got a crash course. And, well, the crash course takes about 24 hours because there was literally a book called JavaScript in 24 hours. But well, actually, I didn't read this book until I was working on my ticket for a long time. How is that possible? Well, first of all, thanks to the well-structured working code in our production that I was able to use the code as example to learn. So I started with a simple ticket that I don't need to modify the whole structure of the code, but instead I modify things little by little. There, I see how it happens. But that didn't last very long. I went into the cultural shock phase with JavaScript. As simple as it seems, this web native language was initially written only in 10 days. However, for people who are using Java for too long, my brain is wired in a way that I can't understand how simple JavaScript is. The first shock is the loose syntax. So JavaScript expert here tell me how many ways you can declare a variable. I hear 3 ways. And how many ways you declare variable in Java? Maybe 2? Oh, well, up to Java 9, we only have one way to declare a variable. You give it a type, and you give it a variable name. But JavaScript, on the other hand, it has 3 off the bat, and here's a modern version, here's an old version, and they work together. They just mingle together. And if you're not careful, you could easily be mixing them up. And look at this whole section explaining the difference between them. Well, thanks God, there is an instruction to tell you how to just declare a variable. That's something I didn't expect it. And second, and most difficult thing for me to think about is the JavaScript is functional. Well, what does it mean by functional? Again, there's a whole guide to tell you what a functional is. And Java folks, do you remember the last time you used functional programming in your code? Oh, I see you shaking your head. Well, technically, Java is not functional. We all know the lambda functions, but internally, it's actually just a functional interface. It's still objective. But believe it or not, being a functional language, JavaScript, everything in JavaScript is based on the object. Even the function is an object. If you ever looking at the debugger, the function is also an object. That's confusing enough. And it is event-driven. That means it never executed as you expected. When we run a Java program, we expected a flow. We can stop a debugger anytime to see where it is, poke at the value to see what it is. But unfortunately, when you are working with the front end, it's up to the user to where to click and what's to happen. And async everywhere. Yes. But thanks God, it's a single thread. And the async in Java is not, async in JavaScript is used way more often than Java for obvious reason, because in the front end, it has to wait for the back end, and the back end wait for nothing but the database or other services. So while you could get away without using async your whole Java application, but you absolutely have no way to avoid async. And here, the error message. And can you tell me what's your favorite error message? Well, no one likes JavaScript error message. It never says what it is. It sounds like this is not iterable. This is not a function. This is not but it never tells you what exactly wrong with it. And when you click on the error message, it doesn't even take you to the line of code you write. Why? Because JavaScript, if you ever use a framework like React, the code is translated into the native JavaScript back into the compiler when you are back in the browser. When you are looking at it, it's no longer the code you write. It's no longer the neat and beautiful code React provides you. It's the ugly JavaScript. It just doesn't care about your feeling. So, well, most of the time, you probably can guess what line it was. It takes you back. You can go back to your IDE to fix it, but sometimes it just doesn't. There you need a debugging tool. Well, my old question, what's your favorite JavaScript debugging tool? You got it, console log. And Java guys, when was the last time you used the system out print? Does your coworker discriminate you if you use that? we are supposed to using logging framework. Supposed to use the debugging IDE, right? But somehow in JavaScript, console log is the king. That's something I didn't expect it. But that's not the whole story though. When you go to the actual debugging tool, suddenly you get 10 plus more tabs, give you information overload. It not only tells about how your code is running, it even tells your performance, which makes you nervous. It tells your appearance, which makes you judge yourself in the mirror. Oh, console, of course. And again, this source is lying. It's not what you wrote. It looks completely different from what you do. And network tabs, well, that's where our Java code goes to most of the time, is applying the API to the front end. Well, enough tool of this debugging tool. So you see the wide range. You went from a very simple language to very loose syntax that let you make mistake, doesn't let you fail until the very end because it doesn't compile. And you suddenly have all the advanced topics in JavaScript, in Java at the front page of a JavaScript book. And you don't get the right message. You don't get the debugging tool. And oh, am I clicking too fast? Don't forget that when you're working with the front end, the log stays in the client side. You just don't know what happened on your client side. You have to recreate every issue in your local in order for you to debug, and good luck with that. And I asked my senior, how do you know something is wrong over there? He said, well, that's experience. And that translates to me, that's job security. Well, but Java folks don't give up yet, because if you look at Java, when we look back at what our knowledge is already at, we probably see something relatable. And by learning JavaScript, you probably will get a new understanding of what's in Java, like the loose syntax. In Java 10, we introduced the variable var. Makes many people confuse even more between Java and JavaScript. And the keywords like record. And this fake functional programming lambda, which greatly reduced the Java workload. Now you know who to thank to. It's the JavaScript influence. Also, Java has a whole chapter about a reactive stream, which is also event-driven. And did I forget about Gravel? Or Gal VM, which allows you to run JavaScript and Java together. And that's already adopted by Facebook and Oracle and all the big name companies. So, well, maybe as a Java folk, we already have our step into JavaScript already. We just don't know yet. And while talking about our favorite error message in Java, it's not always clear either. So we can deal with that. Well, also this recreate racing condition in local. Have you ever successfully doing that? See, the life of a Java is not easy. So we can handle what's on the left based on what's on the right. But after all, when you are in front end, you're going to think of front end. Why? Because if you ever try to learn a second language, by the way here, yeah. Did you do the word-to-word translation from the beginning? Absolutely, yes. Does that help you? No, yes. So while we have the knowledge of Java, we probably have to forget about Java for a while in order to think the JavaScript way, the front-end way. And don't be afraid yet, because we know there's an awesome language learning app called Duolingo. Have you used that? Yes. And how it works is everything is drag and drop. Everything has a hint. You can never go wrong. You just need to try and maybe pay the premium. But here, I find a Duolingo quest for our Java first language speaker to start for free. And it's just awesome, like Duolingo request. That's called Free Code Camp. And it happens to be a sponsor of this event, and I'm not paid by them by anyway. I just like it because, well, look at where we are. We are at the very end of a tutorial of a hook, of a React hook. And normally, you would probably spend, let me go back to the course. Normally, you would take your thousands of steps to get there if you diligently follow steps. But you could actually jump in any time and start experimenting with the React framework. So can I invite one of the Java person up to the stage? Yeah, please come here. Just stand with me. Just bear with me. So I assume you know nothing about, React components, hooks, or anything else. But can you guess? So this button is supposed to show and hide the text. Can you guess where the button is coming from? Where this block is coming from? You're free to scroll.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm counting the time.
From here?
Oh, how did you find it so fast?
Because it says on click, then I see toggle message.
Great. Yes. Well, that's the secret how I nailed the job when the UI guy was gone. Because on one hand, the UI developing is intuitive. What you see is what you get, and you're gonna use your detective skill to find out where things belongs to. Apparently, here's a big message, and here's a message. It's probably something to do with it. And what you are missing is some basic baseline knowledge that React is component-based, what a component is, some basic HTML syntax, and the Java language we just discussed about. Well, of course, it's not simple like that. I can show you another example that's deceivingly simple, but look at this web page. It's static. If you click on it, nothing gonna happen. It's just 3 blocks. But how much code do you think to make this happen? Oh, I'm not holding on to the answer. So this is the backend code alone. Yes. And, this is the front-end code alone. And there is a whole system that manages the backend, the content. And it is amazing that in our real jobs, things are always like that. The presentation is super simple, but in order to make it enterprise level, we do layers and layers of abstraction. For example, here the content, where the words are, lives in this portal, but in the code itself, you have a single line. This single line is in charge of the render the whole page. And you imagine how many layers are inside, how many abstractions, how many management are there. And that's the part I won't reveal to you yet. You have to go there for yourself. And last but not least, some cautionary tale about AI. Your mileage may vary when you drive with Copilot. Why? Because after all, you are responsible for the code accuracy. And whatever AI wrote, you absolutely have to have more knowledge than it to verify it is correct. And, well, as far as I experienced, the AI always makes a mistake. And when it does, it's always a nonsense mistake that human won't make. And sometimes it's just easier to debug, easier to rewrite yourself than debug the nonsense AI spills out. And that's based on my experiment with a single task in my work. Something would normally took me half a day, it took me a whole 2 days, and I had to explain to my manager what I'm experiencing with. But AI is not always the bad actor. It actually pushes you to keep good code practice. So what I find is that if your code is up to modern standard, it's modularized, it's up to best practice, AI is better at understanding it. And, well, sometimes the ambiguity of AI is also a pro. So that pushes back to you to clarify your question, like you're talking to a real person, like you're talking to a non-technical real person, or a rubber duck. And have you ever heard of a rubber duck debugging? Yes. And the rubber duck talks back to you. That's something I learned from last CYC conference, is you could ask him question, like, some example would be like, please update this code to the best code practice. You don't know what is the best practice, but as soon as you do, the AI usually will prompt, okay, I'm going to update your code up to these bullet points. And that's where you steal knowledge from AI. What is the best practice? AI just to tell you. Next time, you can use the same bullet points to instruct the AI without the back and forth. And last but not least, so this whole talk is not supposed to be just talking and listening. What I really want to invite you guys to do is commit your story, commit your code. And maybe start from learning from the repository in your work, if you have access to a front-end repository, which is normally the case, or on GitHub, because with the help of AI, they can explain the code to you, and you can feel free to experiment, thanks that the front end is usually environment independent, so you really can run things in your local without issue. And second is community stack exchange. Remember the first question I asked the room, who is the front end, who is full stack, and who is back end? Yes, so I hope somehow you guys can connect together and exchange your skill. Because after all, AI, as good as a pair it is, it's not going to give you the critical feedback that only human user can know. And last but not least, share your story in Discord, on LinkedIn, or anywhere, maybe on our next meetup, because I want to see more people get out of the comfortable zone and step into the danger journey. Well, that's all it is. Thanks.